Question: what is worse, carbs and sugar or seed oils?
Oh, great question. Yeah. So I wrestled with that for many years before I came to the conclusion. And here it is. Definitely seed oils. Hands down, seed oils are worse than carbs and sugar, especially when you don't qualify what you're talking about in terms of carbs and sugars that, especially just like generally, right?
Dr. Mindy here.
Your body is in a war zone.
Different parts of the brain get activated depending upon how stressed you are.
When you look at it from that inflammatory.
It's interesting. I mean, that has some merit to it for sure.
And you can't control everything.
I'd say.
And what about a woman who is not pregnant, but she's aiming?
I don't bring everybody back. I have to really love the conversation. I have to really feel like it's a necessary one. And the first time, which I think was like a couple of years ago, I had you on here. And yeah, it was so good that I'm really happy to have a repeat conversation. So let me just start by welcoming you back.
Well, thank you. I'm happy to be back with you. I look forward to what we're going to talk about today.
Yes, me too. So listen up, everybody, because this is one of the most pivotal conversations around metabolic health that I just feel like we cannot scream loud enough. So I want to start with this question. What is worse, carbs and sugar or seed oils?
Oh, great question. Yeah. So I wrestled with that for many years before I came to the conclusion. And here it is. Definitely seed oils. Hands down, seed oils are worse than carbs and sugar, especially when you don't qualify what you're talking about in terms of carbs and sugars that, especially just like generally, right? Because broccoli has carbohydrates. So when you get, let's say you get 50, 70 grams of carbohydrates from vegetables or other whole foods, that's definitely beneficial. Okay. I just want to say that, like, those are beneficial.
You know what I've started saying now is nature's carbs versus human-made carbs, because we have villainized carbs so deeply and we forget that nature provides a lot of really healthy carbs, to your point.
Well, yeah. I mean, the fact, just even talking about food in terms of these macros, that has nothing to do with nature.
Yes.
Nature doesn't grow carbs. Nature grows plants and animals.
Yes.
And that third kingdom, fungus, we all forget about. But let's not forget about.
Let's not forget about fungus. You know what? It's a really important point, because I've been watching the keto movement forever, and since it became really popular, and we went into this phase where we started villainizing carbs, and we forgot to, just like fat, we forgot to say there's good fat and bad fat. We forgot to say there's good carbs and there's bad carbs. And I just have not found nature to make any health mistakes. It's what we do with what comes out of the earth and how we manipulate it that now we have a problem. So, but on the concept of seed oils, for starters, just help us understand, why is the metabolic expense so much greater with a seed oil than even a piece of bread?
Yeah. So to start with, the seed oils are the opposite of something nature makes, right? So just to piggyback on the conversation, nature doesn't make bad food. Nature makes plants that can have toxins that protect themselves, but human beings also are not so stupid that we have to be taught those particular lessons too many times. So we know what foods are safe. We cultivate them, right? Yeah. So what you said also is important, because it does something that we don't get when we start diving into macros and going real deep into details. And that is the big picture, is we need to just respect nature. And that's what I've been talking about and doing. And that has been my guiding principle since I was born. I think I was just born with this idea that, respecting nature. Nature's not stupid. We need to bow down to her dominance over our lives. And,
amen.
Yeah.
Amen to that. I agree.
So seed oils are the opposite of natural, and what they do to our metabolism. And one of the things that convinced me that they are worse than even refined carbs and sugars is that they change our metabolism. They change it in ways that seed oils and sugars can't. And And what they do, and here's the real kicker, is that they make people crave sugar. And I think I just misspoke there. I think I said seed oils change our metabolism in the way that sugar and carbohydrates can't. Even the refined sugar and carbohydrates cannot change our metabolism in the ways that the seed oils can. And the name of the change, we all know this name. We've all heard of it. We just haven't tied it to seed oils. And that's what I did in Dark Calories for the first time, or maybe the second time. So I talked about it in Fat Burn Fix too, but I talked about it more like clearly, I think, in this one. And what seed oils do is they make us crave carbohydrates and sugar. And that is called insulin resistance, that state where we crave these things, not for flavor. I need to specify, most people are not craving them just for flavor. They're craving them mostly for what? For energy, for brain energy, because that's what insulin resistance is. And nobody's defined it that way. So that's one of the things that's new in Dark Calories, which is insulin resistance is this state where our brain needs sugar for energy, because nothing else in our metabolism will give it energy. Our metabolism is broken. The name of the broken metabolism, insulin resistance. That leads eventually to pre-diabetes, type 2 diabetes. So it's familiar, it's relevant. It's not some theoretical metabolic issue. It's something people are dealing with. Millions of people are dealing with diabetes. Twice as many people are dealing with pre-diabetes, and even more are dealing with undiagnosed insulin resistance.
So are you saying that if I'm repetitively eating seed oils, it is changing my metabolism for the worst, as opposed to if I have some bread or crackers? I always call it bread, crackers, desserty things, which probably have seed oils in them too. But if I have a bread and sugar that doesn't have bad seed oils, and I have bad seed oils, the bread and sugar is not going to have as lasting of a consequence to my metabolic system as the seed oils are.
Correct, because the bread and sugar do not have toxins in them, and the seed oils do.
Wow. So, okay. And what ultra processed foods are is we put them all together. Right?
Exactly.
I mean, we put the bread, the sugar, and the seed oils together. So
yes, ultra processed food, you just defined it way better than, the people at Tufts, the geniuses who in South America who came up with this new NOVA classification system that all the academics are saying, oh, it's so brilliant, ultra processed food. When you ask them what is it, they give you like 5 pages of lists, and none of it makes any sense, because their ultra processed food list, the NOVA classification that now public health is going to be subservient to this. They're going to be saying things like, a steak is less healthy than Lucky Charms, because this is like, people have been up in arms about how absurd this thing is, but it's coming from Tufts University. It's coming from a university in Brazil, and it's coming to destroy our food supply even further, because it's grading food in such a way that real foods like steak and eggs and cheese and butter, those foods are graded poorly. They are considered ultra processed somehow. Like a hamburger is a preformed hamburger. When you go to the grocery store and you buy 100% ground beef, but it's preformed in the shape of a hamburger, that is considered the worst kind of ultra processed food, right? So that's why I'm saying we need to be clear on, I wanted to highlight that you're defining ultra processed food in a much more concise and accurate and helpful way than all the academics and all the king's horses and all the king's men who are leading, the officials leading this conversation around health. Wow. And I do define, I have one more thing that I add on to in Dark Calories. I make that definition clear in Dark Calories. And the one more thing is protein powders. Those are also really refined, like, the hydrolyzed whey protein isolates and soy protein isolate and all this stuff. that, unfortunately people rely on for their protein
Yeah.
because, they don't know how to cook often. But
Yeah, it's like going back to simplicity is what we have to do. When I hear you talk about the way that they're redefining food, my brain has to go to two places. One, it goes to almost like I want to cry, I want to be angry, and then it goes to, but wait, why would they do that? Like, are these people really trying to kill us? Or are they just so focused on profits that they can no longer see the damage that they're doing? Like the information is too close to them.
yeah, it's more the second than the first, I would
Yeah.
argue. I would say there's a lot of I don't care about people mixed in with that. I don't care about other people's health.
Wow.
And I
Wow.
don't, certainly there's a ton of I don't respect nature. And so in
Mm.
the end, a lot of these people are,
So much.
like they're wealthy enough, the people leading the conversation, they're wealthy enough that they go to restaurants that don't use these oils, or they
Yeah.
have personal chefs. They're just not exposed to them. So they're protected in ways that they
Yeah.
don't necessarily even understand that these oils are bad. They don't even have to. They just know that they make money by doing what they've been doing, which is ignoring the science on seed oil toxicity and, running nutrition departments at universities that get
Yeah.
funded by the processed food companies and or the drug companies. Hello, conflicts of interest. Hello. I mean, how is
Yeah.
that? It's really just a simple matter of, well, this is what some people used to call crony capitalism. Capitalism can be good, it can be bad. And
Right.
crony capitalism is bad. It's out of control,
Yeah.
money out of control. No ethics, no care behind it, no
Yeah.
thought for the good of the other people. It's only the good of your pocketbook. That's what crony capitalism is, and that's what got us here.
Do you think that the seed oils has been the number one contributor to obesity, and now we have a world that's obsessed with these weight loss drugs? Do you
Yes.
feel like there's a tie between those two?
100%. So chapter 3 of Dark Calories makes the connection there that, again, has never been made before. So I love bringing new science to the world. That's what I've been doing since my first book, Deep Nutrition. I love making sense of science. And because in my way, it's bringing people over to my thought of like, let's respect nature, right? That's why I love doing
let's
this.
Respect her. Yes. let's put her on the pedestal she deserves.
There. Yeah.
Yeah.
So how do they make us gain weight? Well, they make us hungry because they shift our metabolism. So that metabolic shift that I was talking about, called insulin resistance, where we crave sugar, we crave it because our body fat has been corrupted. The chemistry of our body fat has been corrupted by the seed oils, and it no longer gives our brain the energy it needs between meals. The whole job of our body fat is to serve up energy and fuel to all of our cells between meals. And the main sensor of the effectiveness or the fuel levels, if you will, in our body, the main sensor is right in our brain. So when our brain isn't getting energy, we have to take action. What is that action? Well, it makes us hungry and we eat, we snack. So what we see with this obesity epidemic that almost nobody is talking about is a snacking epidemic. There are more people snacking now than ever in history. We have more people eating 5 and 6 times a day now, according to the surveys on how often people are eating, than ever in history, according to these series of surveys that have been done over the past 10 years. It's very simple. What's complicated is understanding the chemistry and the biology of the connection, and that's what's in the book. So people can really understand it, so they can see that there's really something here. I'm not just making these claims, but that's the bottom line, is that when we've based our diet on seed oils and the amount that we now consume, we have totally corrupted our metabolism and the chemistry of our body fat, and that makes us snack. It makes us hungry.
Makes us more hungry, yeah.
It makes us more hungry. And the foods that we eat are generally when we're in that state of, oh my God, I'm having a snack attack. I'm hangry. I need something now. We don't eat foods made from scratch. We eat more fast foods, and those foods do not have the cholesterol and the saturated fat and the things that satiate us. So we overeat those too. right?
Right.
So we're
Yeah.
doomed to gain weight on this,
Yeah.
in this paradigm of seed oils are healthy. Just listen, don't listen to nature, just listen to the latest food recommendations from the latest set of academics who are getting all their money from big business.
Yeah. So it's interesting. I just saw an article this week that came out. I don't know when it was actually published, but it was showing that this is the way it was explained, that a high fat diet actually will shut down will upregulate the bacteria that shuts off the production of GLP-1. So it's a high fat diet, right? You see the irony. So it's a high fat diet that upregulates bad bacteria, and that bad bacteria shuts off GLP-1. So now we're going to go give a bunch of these GLP-1 drugs to people to start to fix that system that was shut off by a high fat diet. So then I went into the study to try to find out, like, tell me what fats.
Yeah.
And we're still in the same conversation of lumping all fats together, and they wouldn't break it. I couldn't find what fats they had looked at.
And that's the problem. And I guarantee you that it was the vegetable oils, because if there were normal dietitians in there, and by normal, I mean not the very few who have adopted the keto diet, right? There's no dietitians who truly understand seed oils and their toxicity and the very things we are talking about. And I'm sure you've been now talking about to your audience for a while, since if you've been talking about seed oils since maybe the last time I was on. Or
forever, since the last time. I've been talking about for years. And like when I told you when you came on, I'm like, we still have to go into this because people don't even realize what's happening to them with these seed oils.
Right. And dietitians have no idea. So when a dietitian is designing any nutrition study, when they design a high fat diet, they are not allowed. They are generally disallowed by their by the internal review boards to use butter and eggs and like natural fat foods. So to make it, because they are cut by this 10% limit of saturated fat. You are, and their belief system is that more than 10% of of total calories coming from saturated fat is deadly, going to cause a heart attack. So they are bound by that mythological belief system that's been instilled in all of us now for reasons I talk about in Dark Calories. And it's so important to understand the story. But they don't know that story. They don't know the history of why these things are considered heart healthy. They would just believe they're heart healthy. So that's what they use. And so whenever you see a diet, unless the study involved a known low carb advocate, then you can read, you don't even have to dig around. You already know that they're not studying saturated fat and cheese, and they're disallowed from using that. And that's why they don't tell you, right? They don't, that's why there's a reason they don't disclose what's in the diet. I mean, don't you think that's wildly wrong and irresponsible and to just say high fat and not say, we're actually using vegetable oils that didn't exist before the industrial era, and we're depriving people of a whole set of foods that everybody used to eat until the American Heart Association made these false claims about cholesterol and heart healthy oils. So I think to me, that is just like so egregious. Yeah.
I spent a couple hours on this one article a few days ago trying to figure out, and reading a research study is not like picking up a juicy novel.
No, I know.
You have to like unpack the words and stuff, but I could not find anywhere that they separated the fat out.
Yeah, well, no, they don't. They on purpose. And so, Dr. Mindy, I'm just like, welcome to my world. This is what I bet have been doing. On I don't know how many hundreds, maybe thousands of these studies, and and then the debunkers out there, they say, well, you don't have any evidence that these oils are bad, and I'm like, that's because they hide it. Because when they talk about high fat diets being unhealthy, they're not disclosing what fat they are using. And I've dug around and successfully found the answer quite a few times, but it's not easy. You have to go down and track earlier studies, and then very often they will cite the exact tool that they are using, or the exact diet that they are using. And then you have to go and look that up elsewhere, and you have to have full text access to all this stuff. And you don't always guarantee to have full text access to all the journals in the trail of discovery that is necessary to get to the root of what they're actually saying. So, it's just so irresponsible for anyone out there who's in that healthcare space to say there's no evidence, because they haven't looked, they haven't tried themselves. They haven't done what you and I have been doing, spending countless hours going down these rabbit holes to find that they are not telling us something very, very important. The key thing.
They're hiding it. They're keeping it behind. So just so that we can keep this really action oriented, can you explain for the person who doesn't know what a seed oil is, like which one of the oils or seed oils that we need to stay away from?
There's 8. I call them the hateful 8, so that you can remember that there's 8 of them, because the word seed oil doesn't quite cut it, right? Because there are actually, sesame seed oil is not unhealthy.
Right.
And the word vegetable oil certainly doesn't cut it, because, what does that even mean? You don't get vegetables from broccoli, and olive oil is a vegetable oil, and that is healthy. So I had to create my own term, right? This is necessary byproduct of the fact that academics are not talking about this. So we have to take control of the conversation. I had to take control of it and create my own term. Hateful 8. So there's 8. So memorize these: soy, sunflower, safflower, corn, canola, cottonseed, rice bran, and grapeseed. And of those 8, the first 6 are the most important. And there's 3 C's and 3 S's there: corn, canola, cottonseed, soy, sunflower, safflower. Those are the important ones to memorize, because when you're out grocery shopping, those are the ones you're going to see on the nutrition labels. The other 2 are mostly in restaurants.
So the safflower and the sunflower oil, those are the 2 that I actually see in health food stores. Like I'm in LA, and one of my favorite places to go to is Air One, which technically you're supposed to be able to walk into Air One and everything's organic and non-GMO. But when you actually start to pick up the packages and you look, the oils are all off. And the 2 oils that just keep getting permeated into the healthy products is sunflower and safflower. Why, I think people are waking up to vegetable, they're waking up to soy, they're waking up to canola, hopefully, but sunflower and safflower seem to fall under the radar. Why is that?
Well, they just have this healthy aura. They've managed, they're a little more expensive, and they've promoted themselves as healthy. And they have
a good PR team.
Basically, yeah. Uh-huh. And to be honest, sunflower oil could be healthy, but they don't make it healthy, because what they do is there is no virgin sunflower oil. They just industrially, it's not in our products. It's not, I'm sure there's some artisanal company out there that's selling tiny bottles, like a pint of virgin oil for $16, and that's guaranteed not what's in these health food stores. But make no mistake, they're all can be made organically, like
all 8,
air
all
quotes, 8. Organic. Yeah, they can be. You can, because what is it? What is required that makes it be organic? Well, you can call something organic if you don't add any hazardous materials to it during any point of the processing, right? That includes in the farm and also then in the factory, right? So when they make soy oil, they can make it, without using the hazardous, they can make organic soybeans, and then they can make it without the main hazardous material added to these oils is called hexane. It's a solvent. It helps dissolve the oil away from the seed to get more bang for your buck there, more dollar squeezed out of the oil, more oil squeezed out of the seed. And that hexane now is disqualified. Anything that was made with hexane, even though most of the hexane is removed, and there are trace amounts, but they're like parts per million or parts per billion, and that still disqualifies it from being called organic. So the organic label, though, isn't protecting people from the toxins that develop in the hateful 8 seed oils during the refining, the storage, and the cooking processes. You see,
yeah.
so that's the problem, and that these toxins are there in significant amounts.
Right.
They're not insignificant at all,
No.
especially the more that the oil gets longer it's stored, the more light it's exposed to, the more you heat it, the more toxins are there. And just to give people some qualitative idea here, there was a toxicologist who just picked up serving of fries from the local McDonald's, the local Burger Kings, and studied how many toxins are in there. And he found that it's equivalent to the toxicity of cigarettes. Like
Whoa.
one French fry equals the toxicity of one cigarette of, and that's just of this, that even as bad as that and shocking as that is, he was studying a type of toxin called alpha beta unsaturated aldehydes. That's just one category of toxins. There's two.
Oh, it's only one of the many that are in there.
Yeah. Those are called second order reactants. There's first order reactants and third order reactants that he just doesn't study.
Wow. So if I'm eating these hateful 8, one way of looking at this, and I really so want my listeners to understand this, because the way I'm interpreting what you're saying is when I eat these 8, I am actually depriving my brain of energy. And if I deprive my brain of energy, it will do everything it can to get me to eat again so that I can give it the energy back. So if you want to increase your hunger, eat these 8 over and over and over again, and you will be more hungry.
Yes. And one thing I would just say to add to that is that when you've been eating these oils over years, right, which we all have, because the short-term effects are different than that metabolic disease consequence of insulin resistance. That takes modification of our body fat. It takes depletion of our body's antioxidant systems. And that process takes consuming these oils for a matter of, I guess months for infants or it seems like years, right? And I have to say it seems like, because no one actually studies how fast can you give a human insulin resistance by serving them up a diet of these oils. But when you do these studies in mice, you do it in a matter of weeks. Of course, their lifespan is shorter.
Yeah.
Their lifespan is shorter. So, how does that translate? Well, I mean, we were just left guessing, but you can just look at the numbers of people who have insulin resistance. And I haven't mentioned this, but it's more than 99% of the American population is already insulin resistant. And that's because the American population has no clue that they are eating 30% of their daily calories from these oils now. It wasn't quite as high 20 years ago, but we've been eating them in massive quantities, hundreds of calories a day for decades.
Yeah. I've been sitting with a lot of people who are on the weight loss drugs and just asking, tell me what you experience. And the only thing that people can really, that's a unifying idea, is they're like, I'm less hungry, so I eat less. So I'm thinking, if I look at that mechanism around the upregulation of these bad bacteria that shut off GLP-1, and now we'd have to add that in to calm hunger, the real thing that I would do would make sense is let's get rid of the hateful 8, and then let's lean in to eating the right oils. So what are the right oils that will be healthy for me?
Well, so let me that study that you brought up, I'm glad you brought it up again, because I want to push back against that conclusion that they make us draw.
Great.
Right.
Okay,
I mean,
great.
you correctly picked up on the fact that whatever it is doing that is bad is coming from the vegetable oils. But that business about GLP-1 is nonsense. It's the fact that it's damaging the metabolisms of whether it was people or rats or whatever animals, probably animal that they're getting these studies from. It's damaging their metabolisms in the same way that it damages human metabolisms. The microbiome is this black box that folks are using to just blame everything now on the microbiome. I don't know if you noticed that, but like everything is the microbiome. We got to, blame the microbiome on everything instead of just blaming our diet. But certainly the oils change the microbiome. Okay. Yeah, there's no doubt about that. The studies have shown that. Whatever you eat will affect your microbiome. But the idea that it is as direct as and simple as cutting down your production of GLP, that is a fantasy. People who are insulin resistant, they produce GLP. The problem is their brain is not getting energy. What is GLP? It's just a satiety hormone.
Right.
And when your
But
brain
could both things be going on at the same time?
I suppose, but if there's any truth, let's talk about the relative importance. I would say that there's like 0.1% relative importance, because vegetable oils do so many other bad things to our health.
Right.
That has nothing to do with the microbiome. And I'm sort of, like, I don't mean to poo-poo the idea, but we have to get our story straight here. We're listening to people who don't understand what vegetable oils are. They're drawing conclusions because the microbiome now has become the scapegoat for everything that they can't otherwise explain. Have you noticed that?
Yeah. I mean, here's what I think is that the human body is very complex, and it always does the right thing at the right time. It's always adapting to whatever environment you put it in. And we now have it in a toxic soup.
Yeah.
And in that toxic soup, the brilliant body does not know what to do. So it takes all these toxins and it stores it as fat. And fat is really a way of saving our life. And we go and we villainize it, and we're trying to make it go away, but we haven't addressed the toxic soup. That's really, the way I look at it. And so, but what you are bringing to the conversation that I think I really want to point out is, why is everybody so hungry? Why is everybody so hungry? And, I can tell you that I live what I call a fasting lifestyle, where I tack on a fasting window almost every day, not always, but most days I'm fasting anywhere from 15 to 17 hours. And then when I eat, oils is the number one thing that I am protective about. And the biggest challenge I have at 54 years old is I'm not hungry. I am not hungry. And I think a lot about the Okinawa women that we put up on a pedestal as being like, why do they live so long? Well, they eat less calories. Well, why do they eat less calories? Because they eat real food that came from nature. It's not complicated, people. So this is where I start to get irate. I'm like, let's go back to simplicity. And so whether we're going to throw the microbiome under the bus, or we're going to throw genetics under the bus, the bottom line is our food system has gotten to new levels of harm. And we have to start calling them out, which is what you're doing. And we need to start pointing our fingers at things like olive oil and avocado oil and like other oils that people can lean into that don't have the PR team that the Hateful Eight have.
Right. Like anything else is good. Like you had asked me what is, good. So, I mean, I'll give you my favorite 5, and that is butter, olive oil, peanut oil, that's unrefined, and sesame oil, also unrefined, and coconut oil, unrefined. Right. Okay. So, any unrefined oil is going to be good. And oils that are refined, those that are not the Hateful Eight are not as good for you. Right. Yeah. And they're best avoided if you can do it. Like, so avocado oil that's refined is not as good as unrefined avocado oil, but it's not as bad as the Hateful Eight. So, but
there's a middle category. Is that what I mean?
Yes, there is. Yeah. Yes. It's, I call it okay, but not great. And it's essentially empty calories, right? So, we were talking earlier about sugar and refined flours. Those are empty calories also. So the refined oils that come from coconut and the refined peanut, those are basically the empty calories of the oil world. And they're not something you want to seek out, but they're better than the Hateful Eight. So it's important to understand that there are, those 3 categories, and there's the good, the bad, and the middle ground of just empty calories, right? So like, we were talking about carbohydrates when they're whole foods, they're actually good for you. But when you refine them, then they're no longer good. But they're not toxic, directly toxic. I mean, you could argue that if you eat enough sugar and spike your blood sugar, that has toxic effects. And indeed it does. But the toxicity is slow motion compared to the toxicity of how seed oils affect our health.
Yeah. So how do I get around these seed oils? Because now I can tell you, as somebody who travels a lot, I go to restaurants when I travel, and they all have the hateful eight in them, even the high-end restaurants. So my husband and I have kind of come to the conclusion that when we're home, we're going to make our own food, or when we travel, we go to Airbnbs and we try to make our own food. But it's, even for somebody who's educated on the topic, it's really hard to get around them. Do you have any strategies for people on, like, when you're at restaurants or, out and about? How do we get around the how prolific these oils are?
Yeah, so the last third of the book is devoted to practical strategies that will help
Amazing.
you accomplish exactly that. And so, just as an example, one of them is when you go to a restaurant, if it's a sit-down restaurant, all you need to do is say, do you have anything that you can cook for me right now in real butter, not butter oil? Rather than trying to go through the exercise of asking what oil they use, because we already know the answer. If if they're not telling you that it's seed oil free restaurant, then they're not paying attention to the oils for the most part, unless it's like, a super fancy restaurant, then they might be using olive oil. If they say as a traditional French or Mediterranean or something, from Spain, and they're all talking in Spanish or French or something, and they say they get their oils from that country, but that's rare. So for the most part, you have to take control of the conversation, and that's how you do it. And I give you all kinds of strategies and
Excellent.
tips on how to do that. And also, another really common question that I get is, gosh, when I start looking, I find these oils are in everything. And,
Yes.
how much is too much? And so I tell you how to tell how much is too much too, right? Because there is such a thing as an insignificant amount of a toxin, right? I mean, I'm not saying you can't even have 1 part per billion of this stuff. If that's basically what it amounts to, it's not significant.
Right.
Let's not worry about that. Let's do what matters and focus on what matters. And and that's what I've been about my whole career is let's not focus on the fact that some people have celiac and can't eat gluten. That doesn't mean everybody needs to avoid gluten, let's not focus on the fact that some people have problems with peanuts. That doesn't mean everybody needs to avoid peanuts. Let's not get lost in these contaminants that are, although not great, they're somewhat overwhelming when you try to think about all of them. There's a lot of toxins, right? Our food supply is not great. Let's just get that out of the way. But there's what we need to do to stay sane in this world is learn the worst of the worst. It's called hierarchy, right? We put the worst of the worst. We know that this is number one. This is our priority. Let's make avoiding vegetable oils the priority. And then the next thing I say is don't eat excessive amounts of unnutritious, non-nutritive carbohydrates. And sometimes that includes things like rice. I mean, white rice does not have very much nutrition in it, even though it's, people think of it as a whole food. It's not really a whole food. We've removed the bran. White rice. So, so that's the hierarchy.
I like the way you think that. I really think
Necessary.
that's important because, again, this topic is so confusing for people. And I think we have to start with the understanding that the food system is getting worse and worse, and people are really struggling. I've been really intrigued by a concept that I hear a lot of people talking about right now called food deserts. And how in parts of the United States, people don't have access to high quality foods. And so they're going into their 7-Elevens and they're eating meals out of there that are packed with these seed oils. And then we're creating all these cardiovascular and metabolic problems. And then our immune system's going down. And then now big pharma comes to rescue us all from that. So I love how you've put this at the top. And I really, really agree. I think educating yourself is really important. Here's a couple of sticky spots for me. One is, I'll use myself as an example. I love sweet potato fries. They are my favorite. If I go to a high-end restaurant and I'm going to have a grass-fed burger and I'm going to have sweet potato fries and I know they're cooked in the wrong oils, am I doomed now? Like how long? I've heard some things say that that oils, those seed oils stay in you for years. Like if I have one batch of sweet potato fries, what's the metabolic consequence of that for me down the road?
The dose makes the poison. So if you're doing that every single day, you're going to be getting more toxins. So it's not just that the fats, it's really less of a problem that the fats stay in your body fat for years than the consequence of the toxins that we consume that deplete our antioxidants. And so this is the new information that's in Dark Calories that will really help folks like you, Mindy, and other people who are really into health understand what these oils are doing to our bodies. And it has to do with the concept of oxidation and oxidative stress. And those are new terms, but they are the key to unlocking your understanding to all of it. And I explain what they are. By the time people are done with it, they're like able to put it together in basically one sentence. And that really, really is essential so that you understand cholesterol doesn't cause heart disease, that you understand that you can get control of your inflammatory diseases, whatever it may be, whether, celiac is an inflammatory disease, right? It's an autoimmune disorder driven by inflammation. And psoriasis, skin conditions are driven by inflammation. You can get rid of, if your family has a history, or if you're worried about somebody with memory problems, you're worried about dementia, you're worried about Parkinson's, that is all related to oxidation and oxidative stress. And the reason that I knew seed oils were problematic, basically very soon after I discovered that they existed, was that I knew that they oxidized easily, and the oxidation really was the key to understanding it. But oxidation happens in our body, and that's the missing link in all of medicine. That's why doctors cannot tell you why you have thyroid disease, or why you have leaky gut, or why you have an autoimmune disorder, or why you have brain fog. Doctors cannot tell you that because they do not understand oxidation and oxidative stress.
I 1,000% agree. And if we've learned anything from the weight loss drugs, I'm going to keep coming back to this one. It's that the thing that will motivate people to make change is something they can notice in themselves, which is why I really love this idea that when the brain is deprived of energy, when you're eating all these seed oils, your hunger goes up. Now we have a very motivating conversation. Oxidative stress, as challenging as that is, I don't think the lay person typically can understand that or is motivated by that. But where I want people to take this conversation and run with it is, if you're hungry and you can't get your hunger under control, go on a seed oil free diet for 90 days and see what happens to your hunger. Prove it to yourself. People are paying $1,000 a month for these weight loss drugs. Let's do just a test. And I don't know if you've done this, or a challenge. Let's just get off seed oils for 30 to 90 days and let's see what happens to everybody's hunger.
You're going to notice it. Yeah.
How long? 2 weeks. Okay. That's what I want to know.
That's in the back of the book. I help you take your own 2-week challenge, and I walk you through exactly what to do, how you're going to clear out your kitchen cupboards, what to check for, what to shop for. I have a shopping list. I have a meal plan. I have very easy recipes for people to follow. And yes, absolutely. The understanding the link between brain energy and hunger is key. And I have an entire chapter devoted to that. It's chapter 4. It's called Fat Bodies, Starving Brains. That is the connection. I mean, to understand that there's science behind this, it's not just me making stuff up. That's why we want to let's not scare people away from terms that they need to know. Oxidative stress, I'm not saying you did that, but that oxidative stress is the term we need to know. We've already adopted all these crazy terms, right? GLP-1 and microbiome.
Yeah.
Those terms don't help you as much as understanding oxidation and oxidative stress. Again, hierarchy. Let's understand what is going to help us the most and use our limited brain time, limited concentration. We all have limited, things we can learn to learn the thing that is the central concept of what is going to save our life, because oxidation and oxidative stress right now have been killing us.
Yeah.
They are in the
Well,
process of killing you right now if you're
yeah.
still eating the vegetable oils.
Yeah. And I would 1,000% agree with that. And I have little tantrums in my house all the time when I look at the news and I watch, people who are well respected like Oprah stand up and, advocate for the weight loss drugs. I feel like the weight loss drugs, although they are helping a lot of people temporarily, it's like the elephant in the frickin' room is that we're not talking about what our food supply did to create this obesity problem. And then if we bring it down to the person level, it's like, okay, if you're just struggling to lose weight, if you're just finding yourself hungry all the time, take your 2-week challenge. Try getting off the seed oils, buy your book, follow the 2-week challenge, and then go and see how your hunger changes. And to me, that's giving the person the power back. And I'm just really grateful that you are fighting such an uphill battle, because I know that the food industry probably has your name as a target. And
I wonder sometimes.
is not very excited about books like this, because there is a huge profit in keeping us overweight, sick, medicated, and coming back for more.
And
it really
Mindy,
is so sad.
Since your audience is concerned about GLP-1, whether they should take them, whether they will help them, part of chapter 4, I explain exactly how they work and why they help. And so that you can understand that, yes, so sure, maybe they can be like a temporary thing that helps you at least be less hungry so you can adapt some of these changes. But then, you won't be able to get off and stay off unless you adapt some of these changes. I use the drugs. They've been around for decades as diabetes treatments.
Yeah.
And what everybody said was, they were disappointed that it didn't really help their sugars that much, but boy, they were able to eat less. And it helped their blood sugars exactly as much as it helped them eat less of the foods that were raising their blood sugars. And it just took, the pharmaceutical company a few years for that to dawn on them, and that's what was going on, that they're just an appetite suppressant. They're just an appetite suppressant that is not like the other appetite suppressants, which made people jittery and elevated their stress hormones and their adrenaline and caused arrhythmias and caused them to sweat and all kinds of horrible digestive side effects. This is a appetite suppressant that our body normally makes, and that actually it does make. It's just that it doesn't make 1,000 times the normal amount. But when you inject yourself with a GLP-1, make no mistake, you are injecting yourself with 1,000 to 10,000 times the normal amount of GLP-1 in your body's system.
Right. It's not, now you've put yourself in an abnormal
natural
situation. Yeah.
It is hardly natural. But that doesn't mean that they don't help some people, because some people are just metabolically damaged or have like relationships with food that are really deep-seated and makes it very difficult. They have food noise. I don't know if you ran across that term, but that's what people told me when I was using it for diabetes medication. They would say it calmed the food noise.
Yeah. No, I've had a lot of people tell me like I can think about other things, which so it's like such a double-edged sword, because you're like, it's a miracle for so many people, but we are still not having the right discussion around it, which is, how did we end up in this place?
Right.
And I want to go back to how we started this. I think your insulin resistance is causing a deficit of energy in the brain, so you start to crave more, is brilliant. And I hope that people are really motivated to, if nothing else, get the oils out so your hunger changes. And I think that's incredible. So
yes, absolutely. That is, I think that's the key. That was a lot of what drove me to write this book, was to help people understand what I call it the Dr. Cate's energy model of insulin resistance, because it's a new idea. Like right now, there's no explanation. The American Diabetes Association says we don't know what causes type 2 diabetes. It's a mixture. It's who knows. It's genetics. It's the lack of exercise. It's being overweight. Oh no, now it's the microbiome again. There, can't forget that. It's the toxins, right? It's all these things. Mishmash of confusion. We don't know. We don't want to know. right? Because we like things the way they are. So this is a new idea. Now, the other idea that came along that made sense even to me for a while was insulin, the insulin carbohydrate model proposed by folks like Gary Taubes and Jason Fung. And I don't know if you've had any of them on your podcast, but those folks talk about the carbohydrate model of insulin resistance where it's driven by insulin. But that's why that is wrong. You know, I mean, that was a better idea than what the American Diabetes Association says, which is just give up. It's hopeless. Take our drugs. That at least gave people, oh, okay, I can cut out all my carbs and then I won't be producing this insulin, which is a hormone that has somehow become toxic in my body. And I'm saying that, you know, does so somewhat sarcastically as because it is a stupid idea. Insulin is not a toxin. It's a hormone. And your body is producing insulin when you're type 2 diabetic, is producing a lot of insulin because you're insulin resistant. And the carbohydrate model does not explain how we got into that insulin resistant state or why are we, all obese now, because how it does not draw those connections. It cannot explain it. So it's the energy model of insulin resistance. I want that phrase to be out there now because it helps people understand energy in their brain. And that is the key to resolving all metabolic disease, getting their brain that energy. And I show you how in Dark Calories.
I love that. So let me finish on this. I always love to understand the depth of the way people look at health. So the last question I've been asking this year is, what is health? What's your definition of health? And how do you know when you're healthy?
Oh, I would say energy, right? Like if you wake up in the morning after you've had a good night's sleep and you wake up and you feel like you have energy, you feel like whatever the day is going to bring you, you can take it on. You're like, bring it on, man. Yeah. I got it. I got this. I can do it. Like I look at the Olympic champions, they're bursting with energy, right? Yeah. They're not like schlepping out onto that gym floor and then like perking up a little bit when the music comes on. They're bursting with energy. And so really now, my answer has changed a little bit too, right? It used to be, connecting, putting your body in alignment with nature. Now, since everybody's dealing with these energy problems and, lack of energy, that is the answer right now. If you get your brain, your body energized, you can do so much more. And one just final thing I want to leave people with is that I myself experienced this transformation. I too was insulin resistant. I wasn't particularly overweight, but my brain energy was not there for me. And when I changed my diet, I literally feel like I get 30% more life out of my day every day.
Agreed.
Because I have more brain capacity to live and think and deal with stuff.
Yeah. Agreed. So how do people find your book and how do they find your work? And I'm going to really take it one step further and ask everybody to try the 2-week challenge. So get the book, try the 2-week challenge, and then report back what you notice. So how do people tap into your resources?
Yeah, so come to my website, which is drcate.com, and that's spelled DRCATE.com. And please sign up for my newsletter. So you scroll down to where it says get a free basket of goodies when you sign up for Dr. Cate's newsletter. And you'll get my newsletter, which comes out about once a month after you get a few free goodies and a couple of short emails to figure out, like, do you want to read one of my books? But those resources that you will download for free will help you even if you don't read the books. And staying, in touch with me and emailing me, please, if you do have success with this, I want to hear about it because that helps me. Yeah.
And post about it. Like this is a problem we're all in. And so people listening to this, if you take that 2-week challenge, you get a result, post about it, send her a message about it. Like this is something that the time has come to call out the food industry and to call out these oils. So Dr. Cate, thank you for fighting the fight. I know it's not easy. I really can hear it in your voice. I know many of us who have been trying to empower people one by one. It's frustrating when we don't have the money that the big food industry has. We can't get to the researchers, but we watch big pharma profiting from big food's egregious way of making food, and it gets exhausting. So thank you so much for fighting the fight.
Well, thank you. Doing this, for fighting with me. You know, we're
We're in it together,
comrades
girl.
in arms, I guess you could say.
Yeah, agreed.
Yes. Well, thank you so much. And thank you for saying about the posting about it. That's brilliant. I like that.
Yeah. I've hit a new level of, okay, everybody rise up. Like that if we don't advocate for ourselves, we are going to continue to watch people we love die. The chronic statement that I make is, even though your health situation right now may not be your fault, it is your responsibility. And when you make a change, you can inspire others by posting about it. So again, Dr. Cate, thank you again so much for your passion, your knowledge, and fighting the fight with me.
Thank you. I've really enjoyed our conversation.
Yeah, thank you.